100 days into the new administration, and Team Trump declares the border is secure.
Today, as I'm standing here, we are the most secure border in the history of this nation.
I'm Georgia Howe with Daily Wire Executive Editor John Bickley. It's Tuesday, April 29th, and this is Morning Wire. Illinois Democratic Governor JB Pritzker is fueling presidential buzz after a fiery speech this week targeting Trump.
We must castigate them on the soapbox and then punish them at the ballot box.
And while courts block Trump's agenda, the administration strikes back, arresting judges charged with illegally shielding migrants.
Thanks for waking up with Morning Wire. Stay tuned. We have the news you need to know.
The White House is celebrating 100 days of Donald Trump's presidency, and a huge part of its focus is on securing the border.
Daily Wire White House correspondent Mary Margaret Olahan was at the White House for the event. Mary Margaret, you spoke to border czar Tom Homan. What did he say?
Hey, Georgia. So yesterday was all about immigration at the White House. Just walking down the path to the briefing room, there were over 100 signs highlighting the 100 arrests that the Trump administration has made in these first 100 days. And we're talking about illegal criminals, rapists, murderers, assaults, burglaries, attacks on children, just heinous crimes that occurred throughout the past several years. Now, Tom Homan is never a soft-spoken fellow, but when he spoke to the reporters yesterday, he just unleashed as he talked about the Biden administration's border policies, how they purposefully work to unsecure the border, and the steps Trump is taking to fix that problem. Take a look at this.
We handed the Biden administration the most secure border in my lifetime, and he unsecured it on purpose. Under the Biden administration, we averaged over 11,000 many days, over 12,000, even some days, 15,000 illegal entrants in the United States. You know what the number was the last 24 hours? 178. 15,000 to 178. Unprecedented success. Under the first 100 days, what was actually January 20th to April 1st, last year, 184,000 illegal aliens were released into the United States. Under this administration, 9. People always want to say, why are you so emotional when you testify? Why are you so emotional on network? Because if they wore my shoes for 40 years, they'd understand why I'm emotional. When you listen to the Laken Riley, 17 minutes, that young lady fighting for her life, don't just think, okay, a young woman died. Think of how she died, the terror that she went through, and these children that are sexually assaulted. I stood in back of a tractor trailer and 19 dead people at my feet that baked to death. Illegal immigration is not a victimless crime.
Now, I noticed that so many of the crimes that the Trump administration was highlighting had been committed by illegals against children. So I asked Homan about that.
This list has a very high number of sexual assaults on a child. Can you comment on that and why there's so many crimes against children committed by illegals in this country?
I don't know why. It's sick. The amount of child rapists we've arrested under this administration, that could have been arrested under the Biden administration. They were out there. They had their final orders. They were out there, but they didn't go look for them.
Now, you also spoke to some other officials in addition to Tom Homan, correct?
That's right. After the briefing was over, I sat down with a number of Trump officials to talk about the first 100 days of this administration. One of these officials was Ron Vitiello, who served under Homan in the first administration, and now he's back for round 2. He tells me that things are completely different this time around.
Under Trump 1, I should have been more aggressive in getting the job done, and we don't have that restriction now. Everybody knows what this president's agenda is. Everybody knows what Kristi Noem expects of each of the agencies, these particular agencies, and how we're working together, and we're making that happen. There's a lot to do, and we want to make sure we do it in a way that's sustainable over time.
Vitiello explained how closely all these Trump agencies are working together, from DOJ to ICE to Homeland Security to the Defense Department. We also talked to Sebastian Gorka, who said pretty much the same thing.
Pete Hegseth is at the southern border with Tom Homan and our troops and our CBP patrol agents. And I just asked the question, when in American history have you ever seen a White House immigration senior official at the border with the Secretary of Defense? The fact that you'll see Pam Bondi, you'll see Governor Noem, now you'll see the great Alina Habba, with that raid jacket on the raids, arresting illegal aliens, getting the cartel members, getting the terrorists incarcerated or on those flights back to Venezuela or El Salvador. Utter complete commitment to mission is what we're seeing.
Overall, a very busy day at the White House where they're feeling like they've made a lot of progress in these first 100 days on securing the border and protecting the American people.
All right, well, looking forward to reporting on the next 100 days. Mary Margaret, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
If you run a small business, you know there's nothing small about it. That's where Shopify comes in. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world that helps tackle all the important tasks in one place, from inventory to payments to analytics and more. With 99.99% uptime and the best converting checkout on the planet, you'll never miss a sale again. Get all the big stuff for your small business right with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period and start selling today at shopify.com/morningwire. Go to shopify.com/morningwire. Again, that's shopify.com/morningwire.
Democratic lawmakers are stepping up their rhetoric against President Trump, with one presidential frontrunner being accused of inciting violence against Republicans.
Daily Wire senior editor Cabot Phillips joins us now to discuss. So, Cabot, over the past month, you have been reporting on the civil war within the Democratic Party about how to address Trump. What's the latest that we're seeing?
Yeah, following the election, the big question for lawmakers on the left was whether they should work to find common ground with Donald Trump and Republicans or oppose his every move. Polling shows the majority of the party's voters now want the fight Trump approach, and lawmakers on the left seem to be listening. This week, Illinois Governor JB Pritzker really turned heads with this quote at a speech in New Hampshire to Democrats.
Never before in my life have I called for mass protests, for mobilization, for disruption, but I am now. These Republicans cannot know a moment of peace.
Now, look, it'd be one thing if AOC or Bernie Sanders had said that. At this point, folks are accustomed to that sort of rhetoric from those far left members. But it is a surprise coming from Governor Pritzker, a billionaire heir to the Hyatt hotel empire, who's generally been considered more of a mainstream establishment Democrat. But in a sign that he's looking to shake that label and prove his progressive credentials, Pritzker had a clear message for moderate Democrats who've taken the common ground approach with Trump. This part wasn't on video, but the transcript reads, quote, "Do nothing Democrats want to blame our losses on our defense of Black people and trans kids and immigrants instead of their own lack of guts and gumption." That is a big quote coming from a man widely considered to be one of the front runners for the Democratic nomination in 2028. Now, for their part, Republicans are essentially saying, go for it. They are confident that message will fail in 2028 as it did in 24. To that point, we spoke with Congresswoman Lisa McClain, chair of the House Republican Conference. Here's what she had to say about the left's current predicament.
Democrats have no plan, no vision, and no leader. And when you can't beat us on the issues, you have to personalize it. You have to, talk about the personalities as opposed to the policies. And that's what the Democrats are doing right now. Let's debate the issues, but they can't debate the issues because they're on the wrong side of the issues.
Now, there are still some Democrats who are calling for a more unifying message. Who are they and what are they saying?
Yeah, California's Gavin Newsom is the poster boy for that strategy. He has urged Democrats to retreat from transgender issues and politically correct language, and also to embrace a more pro-border security message. But the problem for Newsom and other Democrats like him is that they were on the record for years saying the exact opposite. So they now run the risk of looking like a flip-flopper to moderates and a sellout to progressives, who typically are the loudest voice on the left. One of the Democrats now calling for inter-party unity is Arizona Senator Mark Kelly, who had this message.
We are a swing state for control of Congress, but also for the White House. And we need to work together as a team. We can't be in a situation where, we're divided.
Now, the one silver lining for Democrats right now is that President Trump's approval rating has taken a hit in recent weeks. 3 polls from ABC, CNN, and the New York Times all show him at 42 or 43%, 12 to 14 points underwater. And the numbers are clear on what is driving that decline. It's the economy, an issue where typically he's been the most popular. CBS has him down to 42% approval on the economy. That's a 10-point drop in the last 2 months. NBC has him at 40%, and the Washington Post shows him with just 39%. Again, that's all on the economy. If those numbers do not improve, Republicans could be facing an uphill battle in the midterms. The big question now is if Democrats can unify and potentially capitalize, or if their divisions will lead to another crushing defeat.
Well, it'll be fascinating to see what message lands in 2026. Cabot, thanks for reporting.
Absolutely.
Federal judges stepped in and blocked several of Trump's executive orders last week. The courts targeted Trump's moves on elections, immigration, and his attempts to reform the federal government.
Daily Wire reporter Tim Pierce is here to talk about the latest in the administration's legal struggles, as well as a couple of judges with some legal struggles themselves. Hey, Tim. So first, tell us about these latest rulings.
Right. It was a bad week for Trump in the courts. It started on Tuesday. A judge in the D.C. Circuit ordered Trump to allow Voice of America employees back into their jobs while his order to deconstruct VOA and other federally funded outlets moves forward. On Wednesday, a federal judge in Maryland ordered the Trump administration to seek the return of a second deported migrant. This one is a 20-year-old Venezuelan national who was deported to El Salvador after he was convicted of drug charges earlier this year. And then Thursday was the busiest day. First, the same judge in Maryland then blocked some of the Department of Education's anti-DEI efforts. The judge said that the department's guidance to universities to scrap DEI programs or risk losing federal funds violated the First Amendment. Then a federal judge in D.C. blocked parts of Trump's order on federal election reform, specifically parts that required a voter to prove citizenship in order to register for federal elections. And then a third ruling against Trump that day came from a federal judge in California. This one blocked the administration from withholding funds from cities it deemed sanctuary jurisdictions that refused to work with deportation enforcement. Finally, to end the week, a federal judge in D.C. blocked the administration from banning unions across dozens of federal agencies.
It seemed like every day last week, a new court order against the administration. How is the White House responding to all these legal setbacks?
Yeah, Vice President Vance called it a pattern that is not consistent with the Constitution. As he explained on X, the Biden administration does something the American people elected Donald Trump to undo, but then a lawless district court judge substitutes his policy preferences for the will of the people. So the administration is clearly frustrated with how these cases are playing out in court and how consistently judges issue these sweeping orders that in many cases go way beyond whatever question the plaintiff sued over to begin with.
Right, a lot of concern about judicial overreach, not just from the White House, but a lot of legal experts that have looked at these rulings. Now, I want to get to these judges that just had federal prosecutors accuse them of something pretty serious, illegally helping illegal aliens. Tell us about this.
Yeah, there are two cases ongoing right now. One that involves a judge in Wisconsin and another of a former judge in New Mexico. Here's what Attorney General Pam Bondi told Fox about the Wisconsin case with Judge Hannah Dugan.
The judge learns that ICE was outside to get the guy because he had been deported in 2013, came back in our country. Judge finds out. She goes out in the hallway, screams at the immigration officers. She comes back in the courtroom. You're not going to believe this. Takes the defendant and the defense attorney back in her chambers, takes them out a private exit and tells them to leave. While a state prosecutor and victims of domestic violence are sitting in the courtroom.
And then in New Mexico, former Judge Joel Cano and his wife were arrested on charges related to protecting a member of Tren de Aragua. Here's Bondi on that.
So Judge Cano, he's charged with obstruction. He took one of the TDA members' cell phones himself, took it, beat it with a hammer, destroyed it, and then walked the pieces to a city dumpster to dispose of it to protect him. The wife also is charged with destroying evidence. This TDA member, he also had on his cell phone pictures of two decapitated victims, victims, decapitated, gruesome photos, and he was sending them out. Not only that, these two, the judge and his wife, gave him assault rifles that belonged to their daughter. That's what they're charged with. In the criminal report affidavit, he goes to a shooting range with these assault rifles, with a suppressor, with other known TDA members, and they're shooting. This is the last person that we want in our country, nor will we ever tolerate a judge or anyone else harboring them.
So some pretty serious allegations against these judges.
Right, and both with charges related to undermining Trump's immigration agenda specifically. Tim, thanks so much for reporting.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for waking up with us. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news you need to know.